Okay, this video combines George Romero and Stephen King, a cult TV series, and a remake that didn't happen. But the craziest part is that the comic book adaptation that we're going to talk about today is for a show that has never been released. So I don't actually have a show to compare the comic to, but I do have an extra book, a script book. So today on Graphic Adaptations, we'll be talking about Tales from the Darkside. Okay, I think we have to start at the beginning, right? Did you know that George Romero, in addition to creating the modern zombie as we know it, also had his own Twilight Zone type TV show that ran for 4 seasons and 94 episodes?
Man lives in the sunlit world of what he believes to be reality.
This is in the mid-80s, and the budgets are pretty shoestring thin, so it doesn't have an impressive visual presence when we look back at it, but it did have one hell of an iconic opening.
There is, unseen by most, an underworld.
So it's basically Twilight Zone and Tales from the Crypt long before Tales from the Crypt was on TV, and the stories were solid. One was even written by Stephen King. This makes sense if we remember that Romero and King had already collaborated on Creepshow in 1982. Creepshow's another horror anthology with 5 stories, 2 adaptations, and 3 new stories conceived by King for the film. King is even in one of the stories as an actor, as the main character, which is pretty unusual for King.
Holy old Jesus!
Now, Stephen King's son, Joe, is also in it as the kid in the opening and closing bumper stories when he's a kid. After the show ended, there was a movie 2 years later, which is how I knew Tales from the Darkside, finding it on video rental shelves years later. In fact, one of the stories from that movie featured a mummy, which is in one of the 8 chapters of my series on the mummy. I think it was chapter 8. So you can watch that later if you want to. There was a spin-off show called Monsters that ran for 3 years, but really nobody sees anything from Tales from the Darkside for over 2 decades. But now it's back, and it's a comic that's based on a TV series that never happened. Follow me on this, because it's a little twisty. In 2013, Orzi and Kurtzman approached Joe Hill, creator of Lock and Key and also Stephen King's Kid, to write an episode of them resurrecting this show. And can I also just jump in and point out that Joe Hill is good. He starts his writing career as Joe Hill because he doesn't want to trade on his father's name. Lock and Key is a really phenomenal series. 6 graphic novels. Get them, learn them, live them, love them. It's easily a bestseller at the shop, a fan favorite for sure. It's about a family who loses their dad, who's a teacher, to a psycho student who kills him. The family moves back to his family home to regroup and heal, but old, bad, evil rises again in the house, and a legacy of magical keys is explored, each one possessing its own set of powers. Now, I know that I wanted to get away from his father's legacy, but Lock and Key is one of the most Stephen King-esque stories ever not written by Stephen King, and that's a compliment. And paired with his writing through every issue is artist Gabriel Rodriguez, whose steady hand and specific style is a perfect blend to capture nostalgia and human emotions, and also designed the perfect house and keys for this world. This is a near perfect comic series. From the King canon of work, I would compare this to vibes and plot structures found in It or Dreamcatcher. The kids united, the parents not seeing the evil, the years in between past events and the present day danger that they're facing played out in flashbacks or cutting between the 2 time periods, some supernatural threat, a lurking old darkness. It's really great, honestly. It's finished now, and there's a TV series, which I haven't seen yet because I love the comic so much. Honestly, I'm kind of afraid that the show just won't do it justice, but maybe I'll do a Graphic Adaptations episode on that in the future. If you'd like to see that the video, dear viewers, please let me know in the comments. That's the communication tool that we're using on this platform. Okay, so back to Joe Hill. It's not just Lock and Key. He's written other series as well, and this is the kid from the opening of Creepshow. How cool is that, right? I mean, that kind of puts him at that crucial nexus between King and Romero on Creepshow, and now he's being asked to rewrite a remake of Tales from the Darkside. That kind of puts him in this crucial nexus between King and Romero on Creepshow, and now he's being asked to write a remake of Tales from the Darkside. So he gets asked to write one episode, and he ends up writing 3. He even writes a show Bible for the series and hands that all in, and they greenlight a pilot, and then they film that pilot, and then they shelf that pilot, and we don't get to see it. Ever. As far as I know. I don't know if it's leaked online. I wasn't able to find a copy or see any kind of word of it, but it would have been nice. Okay, but then, 3 years later, in 2016, after the success of Lock and Key at IDW, and during a bunch of fervor over the possible live-action adaptation, somebody gets the idea to publish a mini-series of Tales from the Darkside by using Joe Hill's original scripts for those first 3 episodes. Right? Why not? So the scripts get turned into a 4-issue miniseries, and who better to turn the words into pictures than his partner on Lock and Key, Gabriel Rodriguez? Nobody. That's who. Nobody. So we got the dream team back together. Hill's idea for Darkside maintains separate individual stories for the anthology format, but they also have an overarching connective plot that would have been fleshed out as the series continued. This was a new concept for Darkside. Beyond the opening monologue to the original series, nothing connected the stories, and nothing explained the Darkside or what it was. Not that we get a full explanation in the 3 stories that were written, but we do get to see how it affects people in those examples. In the first story, a lifeguard accidentally falls asleep on the job and somebody drowns. After the Darkside energy intervenes, he can't show his face to anybody or they'll just fall asleep. My favorite story is the last one in the graphic novel. It's about a babysitter who comes to sit for 2 kids, and she doesn't understand that they're controlling the environment and reality with their Darkside tablets. They turn day into night, they make knives fly around, they turn their parents into scarecrows, like a Scribblenauts horror movie. It's pretty fun and creepy. The third story, The Black Box, focuses on a guy who seems like a focal point for Darkside energy. We see him as a boy playing games with his friends in the basement until his Darkside imaginary friend called Big Winner shows up. Throughout his entire life, he seems to unconsciously make things happen with Darkside energy until, as an adult, he can't keep a job down at a pawn shop because of them. This is where we see some of the ominous Brightside organization who want to cut open his brain, literally, and learn more about the Darkside. It's pretty wild stuff. Now, I think this was the most fleshed out story. It feels like a pilot to me, and the other 2 stories feels like a second and third episode, but that's not really how the stories line up here. The 2-parter is in the middle of the book, which feels like an odd placement to me. So, I mean, that's pretty much the comic. Now what? Graphic Adaptations always compares a comic to a movie or a TV series, and we can't see the unreleased TV series, so what are we going to compare it to? Well, at the same time that they released the comic book adaptation, IDW also released the unedited script in a hardcover format so we can get an even better sense of the show. Now, these 2 are like word for word tight between them that reading the script right after the comic kind of feels unnecessary. But interestingly, there was some decision made to move around the order of the stories. In the script book, the story choices are how I'd expect them in the comic. First, the story with the babysitter, then the lifeguard, and finally the black box. I should also point out that the script book is also illustrated, but by an entirely other artist, Charles Paul Wilson. And it's really interesting to see the characters and creatures imagined by a different mind with a different vision or interpretation of Hill's words. The black and white watercolor or dark sepia vibe of the pictures is a really good fit, giving us one every 3 or 4 pages. So there you have it, 2 versions of the unaired pilot for a Tales from the Darkside reboot. I always wonder how these things aren't always leaked online, like that Batgirl that was filmed in Shell. But hey, at least in this case, we got 2 different looks into what it might have been, and a reunion of the 2 creators of Lock and Key. I guess you can't blame me for looking on the bright side. I'll see you guys next week.